reference specification is, again, it's this non-proprietary specification. And so what that means is that it's a spec, I want to say spec, because I'm getting tired of saying specification. So I'm just going to say spec. Same thing. So spec. So it's a spec that refers to certain standards and requirements from an authority to be implemented into a building project without naming that specific manufacturer or supplier. And so that's where you get into a proprietary spec, spec versus a non-proprietary spec. And basically that just means and it indicates whether or not there's a specific manufacturer or supplier that's indicated. If it was, then it would be proprietary, but this is non-proprietary, and so it's not going to be listing a manufacturer or a supplier for that. The reference spec, I think the way to remember a reference spec is that it specifies essentially how something needs to meet a code or a regulation. And that's where it's most commonly employed, is that it notes that there's no specific manufacturer, or supplier, but here's the reference. This is the code. This is the regulation. This is what we're trying to meet. And so this is how we should meet it. And I think, a very common example would be if, there's, codes, that's pretty common, but also if you're trying to certify something for a sustainable building, that's where this would also be appropriate, because what you're doing is you're referencing a very specific guideline, you're referencing a very specific standard. And so that's, I think, the easiest way to remember what that reference spec is. And again, the main way that you can reference that is that if it references a specific section in a document or standard. So if I want to certify something to LEED, right, a reference spec would say, from LEED's blah, 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 blah standard, this is how something is to be constructed. That would essentially be an example of a reference specification. It's not just about sustainability, but it also could be code, it could be anything else. So it's just remembering that this references a document or, a standard that, what do I want to say, that regulates, controls how this work is to be performed.